All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. This is the Monday, October the 10th, 2016 edition of the broadcast. Thank you very much for being here and joining us as per usual. I've got some topics I want to discuss with you today. More about topics today than actual news and news stories and all that stuff. Probably won't get into any reading today either. I've just got some very specific topics and stuff that I want to talk about. So we'll be getting into that here with you on the show today. So thanks so much to everybody out there again for being here with us. And yeah, I've got some interesting stuff to talk about today. So we'll be jumping right into it. You know, all the as I've mentioned many times here, all of the current news and everything is revolving so much around the divide and conquer left-right election cycle. And I just, you know, I'm not going to get up here and talk about that shit every single show like everybody else does, because of course that's what they want us to do. They want us focusing on that stuff and not on other things. And I refuse to play that game. But at the same time, I do have to weigh in a little bit on some of this shit, man. It's just so ridiculous. How could you not? Getting even more ridiculous. Just when you think it couldn't get any more ridiculous, it gets even more ridiculous, doesn't it? It's oh man. It's hilarious. I have to tell you though, if I was somebody who bought into all this stuff, gosh, it's just hilarious. The current stuff that's going on. You know, I'm no fan of Donald Trump. I'm no fan of Hillary Clinton. I'm no fan of any of these ass clowns, left or right. Center doesn't matter. But I do have to say, I mean, if they were trying to hurt Donald Trump, I mean, is that all y'all got? That's the most weak sauce shit I've ever seen in my life. All y'all have got is some 10 or 11-year-old hot mic clip of him saying, yeah, I can grab that bitch by the pussy, yeah. Meanwhile, you know, politicians every year are going to the Bohemian Grove and fucking each other in the ass and everything. That's just accepted, you know. Reagan went there and everybody. Rockefellers, Rothschilds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But nobody wants to cover that because it doesn't, you know, it can't affect the election cycle. But really, seriously, if that's all y'all have got, I mean, you might as well just forget the election. Just go ahead and give it to him. Go ahead and make him president now, I say. I mean, again, I'm not defending the guy. I hate the fucking guy and hate him as much as I hate Hillary Clinton or any of these other crooked politicians. But, I mean, seriously. Look at the laundry list on the decades of criminality from the Clintons. And look at Hillary Clinton being recruited by the CIA right out of college. And yet all you've got is some old clip. You can only bring up stuff that he said. How about bringing up some stuff that he did? Now, I know this has been repeated and people have said this over, but it's a great point. I know people are saying this right now a lot, but it is a great point. I'm more concerned with what somebody's done than what somebody said. And not only that, what do you expect from a dog but fleas? I mean, he's Donald Trump, for God's sakes. The guy, everybody's known long before he was ever in politics. He's an egomaniacal fat cat, and all those guys think they can do and say whatever the fuck they want, which is exactly why the guy has no business being president. But you're going to somehow act like you're offended or shocked or surprised by him saying something 10 or 11 years ago. I mean, it really shows you how desperate they are. It really does. Because, I mean, who gives a fuck? Yeah, you can be offended by it. You can say, "Oh, well, that's offensive," and that's an offensive thing to say. Yeah, maybe so. Did you ever see? I'm sure a lot of you did. You ever see the movie Natural Born Killers? there's a scene in there where Mickey and Mallory Knox are out lost in the desert, and they end up getting taken in by some old Indian guy, medicine man guy. He's got all these snakes, and he tells them this story about this lady rescuing this snake and bringing this snake in that was close to death and nursing it back to health. And after she nurses the snake back to health and gets it back alive again, it bites her. And as she's laying there dying, she says, why'd you bite me? Why did you kill me? Why did you bite me? I took care of you. I made you better. And the snake says to the lady, look, bitch, you knew I was a snake. That's exactly, you knew, Donald Trump's, why would you expect anything less out of the guy? Of course he's going to be saying things that indicate that he could do whatever the fuck he wants to do. But Hillary Clinton is going around doing whatever she wants to do. That's the big difference here. Now, again, neither one of these motherfuckers are going to do any good for any of us. That's the bottom line. And those of you out there who are still on one side or the other of this are the problem, honestly. But I just had to comment because I just think that's hilarious. It's like, man, really, that's all y'all got? That's all y'all can dig up on the guy? Some old clip of him saying, yeah, I'll grab that bitch in the pussy, yeah. That's it? That's the best you got? Well, you've lost already. And look, he's going to win. If you have any doubts about that, you're crazy. And I think it's funny because the people who are doubting, I found the people who are doubting that he'll win the most are the people who actually support him. Because they'd rather exist in the left-right paradigm where everything is about how crooked Hillary is and, this, that, and the other. And meanwhile, they ignore the fact that he's aligned himself with the Council for National Policy and Ken Blackwell and all these people who were responsible for rigging the elections for Bush in 2000. He's got the people on his side. You can say whatever you want. Fact of the matter is, he's going to win. And next month, when the election happens, I'll be up here again telling you I told you so. So, but really, if that's all the best, if that's the best y'all got, and what was the other one I heard? Carrie Fisher or somebody, I think people were saying that he was on cocaine or something at the election because he was sniffling or something like that. Well, I got this to say. If he was on cocaine, then we know where he probably got it from. And who gets the best coke, folks? Who has gotten the best coke for many, many years? The Clintons. Mena, Arkansas, motherfucker. That's all I got to say right there. He was probably back there. They were probably back in the green room. They were probably back there somewhere with Secret Service outside. And him and Hillary and Bill were probably back there fucking cutting up lines, dude, rolling up fucking hundreds. Now let's go out here and make these sheep think we're against each other. High five. That's probably what was going down. Jesus Christ. He was friends with the Clintons. People want to forget about that too. Trump was friend. All this is like WWF wrestling, man. It's all fake. It's all for show. It's like all the sports and all that stuff. They count on the same mentality of people that think sports and all that stuff is not rigged. Oh, the NFL's not rigged. Baseball's not rigged. No, they couldn't get away with that. Those are the same fucking sheep with the same mentality that think they couldn't rig an election or get away with that either. Well, if you want to exist in a fairy tale land, then go fucking have at it. But that doesn't make it the truth. Unfucking believable. I want to thank everybody for being here with us. TheGlobalReality.com is my website. My newest film, The Spellcasters, Volume 1 is out right now. You can get yourself a download. We are still working on trying to get the DVDs and the Blu-rays and all that stuff together for manufacturing and artwork and all that stuff done. So be patient. Those will be coming eventually, but we're still working on getting all that together. And right now, you can go and get yourself a download in the download shop. Go to my website, theglobalreality.com. Click on there's a link in the middle of the page that says download Josh Reeves' films here. That's the download shop. Go in there. You can get yourself an HD copy for $12 and a standard definition copy for $10. So go and do that. We've got to have $100 to $200 in here in the next 24 hours. That's our goal for the week, because we have internet bill and power and all that stuff that we've got to pay for. And we've got a nice prize package. The first two people that contribute $100 in the next 24 hours, you can go and see details of this up on our Global Reality Radio Network Facebook page, as well as the Josh Reeves Filmmaker Radio Host Explorer Facebook page. You can see a picture if you want. The first two people to contribute $100 in the next 24 hours will get a 7-gram Mojo bottle of Afghan tourmaline, multicolored tourmaline, and an actual piece of the rock wall. We have 2 of these to give away to 2 people that contribute $100 in the next 24 hours. You can use the donate button at my website. Scroll down on the right-hand side of the page. You can use that, and you can use a credit card, debit card, prepaid card, whatever you want. And if you'd prefer to use just PayPal and go through your PayPal account, you can use a campaign page that's there. But we are in a red alert situation because we didn't get everything we needed at the end of last month to cover our operating costs. So we've got these coming up due. I mean, they already are due, really, today. So we've got to get this stuff covered. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to broadcast and do anything else. And we've got a lot of stuff to cover and a lot of stuff to discuss and broadcast with you here this week. If you're watching on the video, hey, there's the camera. Look, there's a fucking camera right there. And hello to you there too. But yeah, we got to have that, and so that's our prize available there. An actual piece of the rock wall and a 7-gram tourmaline Mojo bottle. We have two sets of those to give away, but it's only going to be good for the next 24 hours. If we don't get it in the next 24 hours, that the deal's off. So act now. And if you didn't get in on the lifetime archive deal and you wanted to get that with your $100 contribution, I might throw that in too. So contribute, and we'll go from there. Okay. This is something I did not, I think at some point I am going to put out maybe like a 1.5 version of the Spellcasters, because there are some things that I didn't put in the film. There are a lot of things I didn't put in the film. I really cut the film back because it was really starting to run into about a 4-hour fucking film, and I didn't want them. I'm done making films that are that long. I made Lost Secrets of Ancient America Volume 1. It was almost 4 hours, and it was a nightmare. It's a nightmare because it's difficult to get a movie that long down into a file size small enough where people can download it and still be of any kind of good quality. Then it's a mess trying to get it onto standard DVDs, because you have to use dual layer DVDs, and some people, you don't know some people have ancient ass DVD players that they've never upgraded the firmware on because people don't know how to do that. So you run into problems there because not all players will play dual layer discs. And so I just, for technical reasons, I can't make movies anymore that are that long. Because if you start making them that long, then you have to split them up into multiple different files or split them up on multiple discs, and that takes money. I just don't have the resources to do that kind of thing. So I've got to cut these movies back a lot most of the time now, even though we may have information that could still have gone in it. So we've got, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's tied into my research, a lot of stuff I found. But this one I know about, and I saw this article, and I went, whoa, what the hell is this? Have you guys ever heard of Polybius before? This is something I've known about for quite some time. And it's funny because I was going to put something about Polybius in the film, but then there just really wasn't a place for it. And to make a place for it, because you could really make a movie just on this by itself. And I think people have tried or are trying to, I think. But this is one of those things that falls under the guise of urban legend, but or people believe it's an urban legend, but these urban legends oftentimes don't just pop up out of nowhere. Sometimes they're bullshit, but Polybius I've actually done a lot of research into, and there actually is some very real validity to it. And what made me think about it again was, well, I had debated while I'm talking about it in the Spellcasters, but then, like I said, it just would have required like way too much time to really cover it. It couldn't have been something I could have just covered quick in there. But it ties into mkultra and mind control and all the rest of it. But back in the early 1980s, there was these mysterious video game arcade machines that appeared in Portland, Oregon, and people reported all kinds of crazy stuff happening when they played this, from everything from amnesia to migraines and nightmares, and people wanting to kill themselves and all this crazy stuff. But essentially what it was is this was part of mkultra program where they had tried, this was their first attempt to use video games as a vehicle for mind control. Now, if they were trying this in the early 1980s, folks, what do you think they've gotten now with all of the newer stuff? And I know for years people have blamed video games have been a scapegoat for mass shootings and violence and all this stuff. And some of it has been warranted and some of it hasn't. But most of it, I think, hasn't been warranted, because when you look at a lot of these cases, the video games itself wasn't the problem. Oftentimes it's the parents who are the problem. But we just don't know. We don't know what's being put subliminally in these video games, what they're encoding in these things. But anyway, they're coming out with a new version of Polybius, or someone's coming out with a game, I guess, that for the new Sony VR virtual reality thing. And boy, you can guarantee that's going to be. I can't wait till this game comes out to see how many people go out and shoot up schools or whatever after this comes out. But Polybius is interesting because essentially what they were trying to do, and there's all these. I think somebody got a hold of a ROM or something from it and leaked it on the internet, but it has all these subliminal words in it. It sounds like stuff out of They Live, like, this is your God, and, you're a slave, all this weird, crazy subliminal stuff in there. And then the CIA would go around and retrieve data from this game based on players. Supposedly they had cameras and stuff built into these machines, and they would then, for whatever reason, go and find the people who had the high score. Now, what they did to these people, who knows? But they did. The reason I was going to put this in the Spellcasters was because, for two reasons. One, obviously with the connection to the CIA and mkultra, but two, just like I've always talked about, they fictionalized the truth, so the truth seems like fiction. And they did this. A lot of you might be familiar with this movie. It came out when I was a kid in the 1980s, and it was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid, and that was called The Last Starfighter. You guys remember that movie? The Last Starfighter is a fictionalized recreation of what they did with Polybius. Now, go back and watch that movie. It's been recently remastered and re-released. It might even be on Netflix. Go back and watch that movie. Because if you don't know what it's about, it's basically that it's a fictionalized telling what they did with Polybius. They put this video game. I think it even takes place. I think The Last Starfighter even takes place in Oregon. That's how close to the actual events. And of course, that's the reason why they put that movie out. So when the story started circulating about Polybius and the data mining, mind control that they were doing, finding subjects with the highest scores and then going and using these people for whatever purposes, whether they were used for Manchurian candidate assassins or whatever it may be, they made this movie where this kid, goes and scores. I think they may have even said it was the government. There are some hints in there to Polybius in that movie. I think there's at one point somebody says something about the game causing headaches and amnesia and stuff, which gives you the very, very clear indicator that, yes, indeed, they are referencing Polybius in that movie. And, this guy gets a high score, and then the aliens come down and recruit him to actually fight in a real intergalactic war because he scored the highest points or whatever. That's what that's based on. It's mind-blowing to see how much stuff that we've just taken as fiction, which has actually been based on real stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the same people that developed the Polybius originally were the same people that developed the game Tempest. Remember that game Tempest, where it had kind of the round, had like a knob thing on it, and it went around. There was another game called Star Castle, too. It was very similar to that Polybius kind of referenced and kind of was built around. There's another movie as well, another one of my favorites from when I was a kid, Maximum Overdrive, with Emilio Estevez, and it's based on the Stephen King short story where a comet comes over Earth, causes all the machines to go haywire and start killing humans, but then at the end of the movie, you read the text on the screen, and it says, a Russian weather satellite with Class 4 nuclear missiles shot down this object that they thought was a comet, but actually wasn't a comet. It was a UFO. I always thought that was a cool twist, because the whole movie the whole time you're watching the movie, you think it's just this comet coming over. It's causing all the Earth's machines to go haywire and depopulate the planet, essentially. Then you find out, no, it was actually a craft, a UFO. So these were aliens that were coming and causing all the machines to go haywire and stuff. And there's a scene in there in the movie towards the very beginning of the film where they're at the truck stop, and the guy's in an arcade in the truck stop. And if you've ever played the old game Star Castle, you'll know if you see that game is in Maximum Overdrive in the arcade scenes. It starts going crazy, and there's a cigarette machine in there, and it starts spitting out cigarettes and change. And this fucking black guy's like, hell yeah. He starts fucking loading his shit up. He's like fucking loaded to the hilt, dude. Like, he can't even walk. His pockets are full of change. He's got smokes, packs of smokes just billowing out everywhere. He's fucking loading up, and he walks over, and there's the Star Castle machine there. And if you ever seen the game or played that game, it was kind of one of those round Tempest style games, really like this Polybius was. And but there's something on the screen that's not the game at all. And it's like this mesmerizing round thing, and it keeps flashing these symbols up on the screen. Now, if you're familiar with I don't remember what they call it, what the actual technical name for it is, but it's kind of like at the beginning of the original Ghostbusters movie, those cards that they would hold when they would test. And this goes back to mkultra. It goes back to remote viewing. That's what's interesting. It's those cards that have symbols on them that they use to test people's psychic ability to see if they're psychic. So that essentially they would hold the card up, and it would have a symbol on the other side. And it would have like 3 wavy lines, a star, a triangle. Well, when the black guy goes up to the machine, it kind of mesmerizes him. Because you see him, he's in there grabbing the change and stuff, and he's just normal. And he had time, he could have walked out, but for some reason, right as he's about to leave with all the change and the cigarettes in him, the Star Castle machine catches his attention, and it mesmerizes him. And he's like under mind control by it. And you'll see it swirling around, and all the symbols, those very same symbols that are used in those cards to test psychic ability, are flashing on the screen. And it mesmerizes him, it gets him in trance, and then he grabs the machine, and it electrocutes him and kills him. Supposedly, that screen that he sees there is actually taken from the Polybius game. It's fascinating. Again, it's one of those things a lot of people have written under the guise of fiction and whatnot, but they have been using video games, and still are to this day, for mind control for years and years and years. Even the military has used started creating training simulator games and stuff like that, and the military has admitted that they have recruited people for like high scores on Call of Duty and stuff. I mean, that's not a joke. So I just thought it was fascinating that, here we are with this, we've been hearing virtual reality. How long? I mean, I remember hearing back in the I remember actually in the early 1990s. I remember those big, they used to have it like Dave and Buster's and stuff, those original old school virtual reality things. Everybody thought back then that shit was right around the corner in the early 90s, and obviously it wasn't right around the corner. But again, it's hard to gauge. We're kept in such a state of arrested development technologically that, there's just no telling what they've had for years they haven't told us about. And I think a lot of the virtual reality stuff has been kind of used and developed for mind control and mkultra and the rest of these purposes. And again, another time, back to Stephen King. Didn't Stephen King do The Lawnmower Man? I mean, that's what that was about. So when you look at, there's two connections right there. Stephen King, Maximum Overdrive, and Lawnmower Man. But boy, it's fascinating stuff, and this Polybius story has been something that people have, and it's been referenced. It's been referenced a lot, and in fact, there in The Simpsons, and we don't even have to go there, right? You're all familiar with The Simpsons being one of their. That's why it's been on TV as long as it has. One of their favorite vehicles for implanting in stuff, predictive programming, and just on and on. We don't even have to get into it, but there has been, and I've seen this myself, and I've caught it. And I don't watch The Simpsons, but I have. Everybody's watched it at some point. I've or been in, around somebody watching it. But there was one time I was watching. There was an episode, and I think Bart Simpson or something was in an arcade game. Was in an arcade, and he was playing a game. And he's at a machine, and the machine next to the one he was playing was Polybius. And, with what we already know about, these people of The Simpsons being Bohemian Grove members, the stuff, the 9/11 stuff, and just on and on and on. You have to think that wasn't an accident, and them sticking that Polybius reference in there in the arcade with Bart Simpson was another one of those indicators, for people. But it's just astounding. And I really wanted to put something of that in the movie, but it just didn't work out. But look into that Polybius thing, man, and watch Maximum Overdrive. It's crazy. I'm trying to remember what all the stuff that it said, that the screen had a lot. The game itself had all these subliminals in it. Like one of them, surrender. It would say surrender and obey. And no thought was another one thing it would say up there. And another one thing it said work 8 hours, play Polybius, sleep 8 hours. I think it was just they were testing the waters to see if they could get away with it on a larger scale. And who's to say they didn't? That may have just been their sort of their test to see how far they could take it. Another thing I want to discuss and talk about with you is over the weekend I watched on Netflix. I had heard, I think this movie was supposed to come out a while back, and I think it was delayed or something, but I was trying to see if there's anything worth watching on Netflix, which is, I only really have Netflix for one reason. I have it for Trailer Park Boys. That's the only reason. So when the new ones come out, I can watch them. But Netflix to me is kind of like, you remember video stores? Remember video stores? Remember Tauntauns? You guys see the new South Parks? The member berries? Remember when there weren't so many Mexicans? What? Wait a second. Remember Chewbacca? Remember the 80s? How about the 90s? Anyway, it just cracks me up. But for those of you who weren't around back then, back in the arcane days of Stone, long before the internet and downloading movies and streaming and all this, they used to have these places everywhere called video stores. A lot of you probably remember those. And you actually had to leave your house. Jesus Christ, really? You had to leave your house and go to the video store and get a membership. Then they give you a little membership card, a little laminated card. And get a membership card. And then you could rent VHS tapes, later DVDs. But, and you had to, that's how you got to, if you see the newer stuff, if you didn't see the theater. Now it's so much better. It's so easy now. If you miss something at a theater, well, fuck, you can see it within a couple of weeks, maybe even the same week. Back then, if you missed something at the theater, dude, you weren't going to see it for like a year. It was going to take like a year, maybe more, for it to be on videotape. But what sucked is if, like, you got to the video store too late on Friday night or Saturday night, God help you. Because then if you got there too late, the pickings were slim. You had to end up like either getting something you've already seen or getting something terrible. Netflix to me is like the equivalent of getting to the video store too late on a Friday or Saturday night back in the day. All the time. That's what Netflix is. It's just all the B movies and shit. They rarely put anything worth a damn on Netflix, but there's a new documentary on Netflix. I guess it was made in 2014. I recall hearing that this documentary was supposed to come out a long time ago, and it's on Johnny Gosch. Now, if you've seen my film, The Secret Right, Volume 1, where we discussed the Johnny Gosch, Jeff Gannon thing, most of you by now, I'm sure, are familiar with Johnny Gosch, the boy that was kidnapped in the early 1980s. And the stuff that I cover, the stuff with Paul Benassi. It's an interesting documentary, but of course they don't cover any of the real. They don't mention any of the Jeff Gannon stuff, of course. They don't mention any of the connections to Michael Aquino, or they reference him, but they don't say his name. They say the Colonel, talk about the Colonel buying these boys and stuff. They don't mention any of the satanic stuff, but it is an interesting documentary, and it got me thinking about the subject again, because I was very much into the subject for quite a long time. And then, of course, when you're doing this all the time, like I am, full time, it's hard to make one issue your issue forever. I'll get on an issue and then I'll move on and move back and forth. But it's definitely worth watching, even if you already know most everything there is to know about the subject. It's interesting to watch it, and it gave me a lot of new, interesting revelations, especially as far as like, I guess I know how far up it goes, but I guess I really wasn't aware of how complicit the local police and everything were from day one. Like, they knew this stuff was going on and were involved in it from day one. And that's apparent, a lot more apparent to me now than it was originally after watching this documentary. But I actually talked to Johnny Gosch's mother one time, Maureen Gosch. I did. She actually used to have, I didn't know it. She had a phone number up on her website or something. This is probably 10 years ago, maybe longer. I want to say it was probably 10 years ago. I think it was 2006. 2007, maybe. I can't remember. Maybe 8 or 9 years ago. Anyway, there was a phone number up on her website, and I thought it was just like a hotline, or, you could leave a message. I just, on a whim, called this number, and a lady answered the phone, and instead of saying like, something hotline or whatever, she just, hello? And I was like, hello? She's like, hi, how can I help you? Who's this? And I was like, oh, hi, who am I speaking with? And she's like, this is Maureen. Or not Maureen, Noreen. This is Noreen. And I was freaked. Couldn't believe it was fucking Noreen Gosch, Johnny Gosch's mother. She answered the fucking phone, dude. I called this number. It was her. It was a straight up fucking home phone number. I never dreamed. I really didn't think it was going to be her actual home phone number. She had her actual home phone number up on the web. And I just was like, oh, I said, hi, I said, oh, I'm sorry. I'm flustered. I can't even speak. She's like, oh, she's really nice. She's like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. She's like, well, how can I help you? And I said, well, I just wasn't expecting you to answer the phone. You're Noreen Gosch. You're Johnny Gosch. Which is, well, I'm not Noreen Gosch anymore. She said, I've got divorced and I've been remarried. And I said, oh, okay. Well, you're Johnny Gosch's mother. She said, yes, I am. How can I help you? And I said, well, before I go any further, I don't have any information on Johnny. I'm not calling you to tell his whereabouts or don't get it, She's like, okay, that's fine. And I said, well, I'm a researcher. I've been researching this case myself. I've just over the past year or two. I think at that point, it was the first time anybody had heard about it. I said, well, I was just, I was researching into the disappearance of your son and the whole thing. And I just, I just wanted to ask you a question and see what you thought about it. And she said, oh, okay. And I said, well, I just want to know if you think that Jeff Gannon is Johnny. And she was dead silent. It was quiet. I thought she wasn't there anymore. Silence. I was like, hello? And she's like, then she turned the tables on. She long paused. She didn't answer my question. And she turned the tables on me. She didn't answer. She didn't say anything. Dead silent. And she said, well, you said you're a researcher, huh? And I said, yes, ma'am, I am. She said, well, if you're a researcher, why don't you tell me what you think happened? And I said, well, I think he was, based on the evidence, based on what, we know, I think he was, he was kidnapped or sold into this sex slave ring, and then he's assumed the identity of somebody else, so that they wouldn't find out who he was or anything. Because the whole Jeff Gannon thing. His Jeff Gannon was his like porno name, right? JG. His supposed real name is James Guckert, JG. Johnny Gosch, JG. And at this point, I wasn't aware that she was visited in 1995 by Johnny. I wasn't aware of that. She was in court and had to go on record. They asked her in court if she'd ever seen Johnny. And she said, yes, I've seen him once, and she'd never told anybody. And supposedly he came to her and said, told her everything. And she never told anybody about it, but she was under court under fear of perjury. She had to tell people that she had seen him this one time. And so I explained with it, this is what I think, and I think that Johnny Gosch is Jeff Gannon, and I just was calling to see what you think about it. And there was the long pause. She would never answer my question. She said, well, all I can say is that you might not be wrong. You might not be right. And that's what she said. You might not be right, but you might not be wrong either. I got to go. Click. That was it. She's never confirmed or denied that Johnny Gosch is Jeff Gannon. She won't confirm or deny. She won't say he is. She won't say he isn't. And supposedly this is because of this visit. And Paul Bonacci, he was the guy. A lot of people tried to discredit him, but a lot of the information that Bonacci provided from the very beginning was all factual. I mean, he knew about the dungeon, the place in Colorado, and all that. Described it to a T. They went in and actually found it, and it was exactly how he had described. He was the one that had named Hunter S. Thompson. He saw Hunter S. Thompson there when the other boy that went missing from 2 years, almost 2 years to the day after Johnny was missing, another boy was missing, and this was the boy that supposedly Hunter S. Thompson filmed them all they all had sex with this boy, they all passed him around, and then they blew his brains out, and then they made Paul Bonacci have sex with his dead corpse while Hunter S. Thompson filmed it. And that guy, Lawrence King, Larry, he was laughing about it the whole time. These sick motherfuckers, man. And, a lot of people have tried to downplay the Johnny Gosch, Jeff Gannon connection, but I'm telling you, from that conversation I had with Noreen Gosch, she absolutely believes it. And here's the other thing I didn't know until recently, because I always suspected the dad. And I'm not going to lie to you. Noreen Gosch definitely knows more and always has known more, I think, than she's ever said. But the dad, he was always on my suspect list. Because even from the very beginning, he never showed any emotion. And look at he was in the military, he was in the Marines. From the very beginning, when Johnny went missing, he never showed any emotion. And anytime you see interviews with the guy, he's smiling. He's like, oh, and then, yeah, well, people just disappear. We don't know what happened to him. He's always smiling. Like, wait a minute, dude. Somebody who had their son abducted like this would not be fucking smiling. You would be emotional. I don't care, military or not. Well, supposedly, the reason why Noreen divorced her husband, and she's actually, I found out recently, publicly even accused him of this. According to Paul Bonacci told Noreen Gosch that her husband was the one who was responsible for selling Johnny into, he sold him to these guys, to the sex slave trade, to these guys, these upper echelon guys, Michael Aquino and the rest of them. And supposedly it was shortly after, because right around the time when she started talking to Paul Bonacci, immediately her husband was saying, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's a liar. You can't believe him. He's a criminal. He's a pedophile. He's crazy. Even though he described parts of Johnny's body that nobody would have known, like a scar he had on his tongue that nobody knew about. Paul Bonacci described this to a T, and this stuff had never been put out in public or anything else at all. And immediately, as soon as she started getting information from Paul Bonacci, her husband started trying to downplay it. And then that's when he told her, your husband was one of the, and then shortly after that, they got divorced. So I always suspected that the dad was involved in it, and he's in the new documentary. And again, he's newer footage of him. There he is. He's just smiling. I mean, who in the fuck would, your son was kidnapped and never found? The guy's never shown any emotion about it. Any of the stories that come out, he always tries to downplay them. And it's absolutely fascinating when you look at all this. And I think the truth will come out eventually. But also, according to Bonacci, this was a part of mkultra. This was a part of mind control. These guys, man, it's not conspiracy theory. That's the main thing. None of this is conspiracy theory. People have tried to write this off. And, it came on my radar because of the connections, obviously, to MKUltra and mind control, but also because it tied in with these right-wingers that are a part of the Council for National Policy and the rest of it. So, it kind of takes us full circle back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. Left, right, doesn't matter. Let's talk about somebody that said, let's grab them by the pussy or something. Let's not talk about, connections to people who've been involved in actual, sick, sadistic stuff. It always boils down to that, But what I didn't know until recently is I had no idea. This blew me away. This was the biggest kind of full circle thing for me. I never knew this until recently, that the day that everybody kind of first started to find out, February 20th, 2005, was when everybody first found out about the connection to Johnny Gosch and Jeff Gannon, was also the same day Hunter S. Thompson was killed. His death was claimed to be a suicide. No, he was suicided. He very shortly after 9/11, he was one of the first people after 9/11 happened. There's clips, you can go listen to it, where he's basically saying, this was people in power, people who want to launch wars, who need an excuse to launch wars, did this. Another interesting thing is that there was this photographer named Rusty Nelson, and he, in an interview with Ted Gunderson and Noreen Gosch, claimed that he was offered $100,000 by Hunter S. Thompson to help make these snuff films of the Bohemian Grove. And the same day that Hunter S. Thompson is killed, the same day we find out about the Jeff Gannon and Johnny Gosch connection, Russell Nelson gets arrested. I mean, so much track covering going on, and these people are still trying to cover this stuff up. And this stuff's still going on to this day. It's probably 100 million times worse than it is now. And yet, we're being told to worry about Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. It's sick stuff, man. But this is why my work right now into the spellcasters and the rest of this stuff is so very important. We've got a fundraiser up. We're only trying to raise $1,800. It's all we need to make the Spellcasters Volume 2. Music, Murder, and Culture Control. This is going to be, forget about this being an important film. Bottom line, honestly, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it for you. This is probably going to be the film that's probably going to get me killed. I'm not kidding. I'm not lying. It's not hyperbole. The content of what I'm going to put in this film has never been. No one on the internet has this information. It's not on the internet. Even if I told you the stuff that I'm going to be putting in this film, you could look anywhere on the internet. No one's connected the dots on it yet. No one's put it together, but I have. And it's probably going to get me killed. And I'm okay with that. I've never been, look, I ain't scared, number one. That's number one. I'm not afraid to die, and I'm not afraid to die for the truth. But I'm not going to not say things that need to be said and put out truths that need to be put out just because it might not be so good for my health. I mean, again, you have no idea what they did to me, what they've done to me already. I've said a little. I won't say much more. But just the things that happened to me during making of Volume 1. I mean, a lot of that's what led to me, having to get the new place and all that. I mean, anyway, I'm going to be naming some names tying some big-time cultural, well-known people to some major deaths and murders, and back to the military and the mob and even the right wing and the CMP. I mean, it's beyond mind-blowing. It's beyond, this is not even mind-blowing. This is absolutely going to shock people to the core. And they probably will try to sue me and kill me and everything else for it. But at the end of the day, the truth is what matters. This is bigger than me. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than my life. It's bigger than your life. And, you know, at some point you've got to make that decision, you know. Anyway, we've got our fundraiser for Volume 2 up right now. We're only trying to raise $1,800. That's all we need to make this film. If we can get this budget in here in the next 26 days before this thing ends, by the time this fundraiser ends, we'll put a link to it in the video here for you as well. We will have the film out for you by December, before the end of the year. This one's not going to take as long as Volume 1 because all the research for Volume 2 was done during the course of that. So really all I've got to do with this is write the script and edit it and put it together. And if we get this budget in here, we'll be able to do that. So there's all kinds of great perk packages in there. You know, if you want to get your name in the film, if you want to, you know, win the big grand prize and become the executive producer and get a 30-minute Skype session with me, all of it's in there. You can go and check it out. But really, like I said, right now, the main thing is getting what we need in here in the next 24 hours as well. So, man, oh man. Well, I got to get back to work. We'll see you tomorrow for another edition of the broadcast, folks. TheGlobalReality.com is my website. Please help us be able to cover what we need to cover so we can keep everything going. I love each and every one of you. We'll see you next time. Take care.